Greetings, love, guidance, gratitude for choosing Info Dissected podcast with Casey and Chuks. We need to talk about domestic violence. Yeah. So, unless you've been living under a rock, like some people, you would have seen about the whole Diddy Cassie video early this year, outlining some crazy allegations about what her relationship with him was like, including domestic violence, including trafficking, including rape, including all kinds of madness. And, you know, he came out with a video saying that they didn't mention her by name, but it was obviously in relation to that, saying about there were heinous allegations and people were just trying to make a money grab, and he 100% refutes and this, that, and all kind of just poo-pooing everything that was going on at the time, right? And there was a lot of people on both sides of the fence. He's a liar. They believe her, and a lot of people were saying, makes sense. She's a money grab. She's a money grabber and whatever. Trying to bring down the black man and boom, 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 that vibe, right? So then, fast forward to a few weeks ago. Well, before then, that there was a raid that happened at his house or his houses in what's the word? I can't remember the word. Where a coordinated raid on various properties to do with him. His children were put in chains. All of these kind of things were going on at this time. And in her civil case, it was alleged that he recorded a lot of things. People that were involved, people that were doing things at these famous Diddy parties. Well, he set up cameras all around his house. So all these things are on camera, leading to this being part of the reason why she didn't feel able to, or didn't feel like she would have been supported by people. So fast forward now, after this raid has happened at his houses, a video of gets released to whatever, some American news channel, showing first is her running down a corridor with no shoes on, holding a bag, pressing the lift, trying to get down. So obviously this is in a hotel, right? And then you see him come running down with a towel around him, which you find out in the previous civil suit, she was saying he was sleeping at the time. So she took it as a moment where she could move and get out of there, right? He comes running down the corridor in his towel, one hand holding the towel, running, grabs her by her hair, fling her on the floor, shot her an Xbox, stamps on her, give her a kick, all kind of like real wickedness. Like I'm talking like crazy. To me, it's crazy, right? And then drags her by her hair back towards the room, up the corridor, and then round a corner. And then I believe there's a part of a video where he's flinging a vase after her. Like you can't see her. He's sitting like I think their room's round the corner. So you can see him down the corridor, round the corner. He flings something after her and whatever, right? So this video comes out. Obviously, there's uproar because now, you know, people have seen this thing. Mm-hmm. And he's getting bun out by everybody. Well, not everybody, but people are either bunning him out or they're not saying nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? I can't. There's somebody was trying to, I don't know, give him some kind of blight, cast aspersions on her character, saying what kind of person she was and whatever. I can't remember who it is right now, but there was somebody that I remember hearing that's famous in some capacity saying that. And then he comes out with an apology video. Not referencing her name. Some people saying it's because there was an NDA signed and she can't mention his name and he can't say her name or something like that. But he was in the end the non-disclosure thing, because he did settle when she brought that civil case. I forgot to say that he did pay her 30 million to make it go away, or an undisclosed amount, but I believe the number was around $30 million. And I believe as part of that agreement, it was she weren't allowed to say nothing about him, and he wasn't allowed to say anything about her.
Right.
But I did hear that there was the reason why she brought it as a civil case is because I think the timing wise, she wasn't able to bring a criminal case against him, because I think this happened in 2016. You know, in America, if it's after a certain amount of time in certain cases, you can't, whatever. And then, but what that did is that opened the floodgates now for people to kind of bring up other cases, and that's where all of this other stuff is coming. So that's the background. And as far as our conversation regarding not necessarily this, but you can give me your thoughts on this particular case, or what I've just explained to you. But as far as this conversation, I wanted to kind of more focus on when, because you haven't seen the video, in the video, when he first grabs her and violently dashes her down to the ground, right? And she hits the ground hard. The first time I saw it, I thought he punched her in her face, but I think he grabs her by her hair or her clothes or whatever, flings her down to the ground. And you see that she is frozen on the floor. And to me, it looks like it's almost like she's trying to not make the situation worse by retaliating or even protecting herself, really. It's just like frozen and, let me get this out of the way. And it didn't work, so let me just get back to whatever it is. And as a woman first, and as even before I do that, just I just think is disgraceful, it's unforgivable, and it's something that I think happens so much when for whatever the reason is, there's a power disparity, I think. But I don't have maybe as much knowledge of either being the victim or understanding that dynamic. I would love to know what your initial thoughts are on. Obviously, yeah, we're going to get into why would somebody stay, but also, really, I want to understand that. Does that make sense to you? That feeling of experiencing something to me looks so traumatic, but the response being, let me just ride this out and I'll get through it and work out a way to handle it at a later date. Because that's what it looked like to me.
Okay.
I know that was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And while you were talking, I was trying to think of what level to kind of speak on, and how deep to get into it. I will pick up on the point that you made about a friend kind of trying to do the whole defamation of character thing with regard to her and what kind of person that she was. And to that, I would say that video is showing her trying to leave.
100%.
And so if she was what this person is making her out to be, surely you'd be glad that she's leaving and going about her business and leaving you alone with her toxicity. Why are you trying to bring her back and prevent her from going? That was
She didn't even know to have shoes on. That's how scared that's how much she wanted to be out of there.
So if you've got someone in your life that's so toxic and dread, you'd be showing them the door, not dragging them back with their bare foot.
Mm.
With regards the freeze moment that you described,
Yes.
that's actually a chemical reaction.
Okay.
And so I can't remember the correct terminology,
Hmm.
but in situations where there is fight or flight,
Right.
and I guess in that situation, and what the brain does is when you're in a traumatic situation, you've got two options. You can either run or you can fight, and your brain will determine what is the best reaction.
Mm.
It's not going to tell you to flee if there's no doors and there's no exits, and like you say, you're waiting for the lift.
Mhm.
My backside would be sliding down the banister. I'm not waiting for no
I
lift.
did hear somebody else say that, like, why was she waiting at the lift? She got no sense.
Yeah.
Go down the stairs.
I wouldn't even have no bag. Like literally, I've
Mm.
seen, and another one is Tina Turner with Ike Turner. What's love got to do with it?
Hmm.
My lady took her moment, and she ran barefoot through the car park, found a flagged down taxi in the middle of the road, barefoot, no bag, no nothing. Just like take me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
The bag is a weight. It's a hindrance.
Hmm.
It's in the bag. You don't need the bag. Just go. Anyway, the frozen part is where and it happens in several assault. I can't say the word because it may mean that this can't go where it's supposed to go. But in several assault situations, um, females especially will something is triggered where it's almost like they zone out. So the
Hmm.
brain is almost protecting you from what's happening in that moment to
Mm.
get you through the moment. So
Right.
you're right in saying she's just trying to get through it, but in actual fact, you physically can't move. So even if she wanted to get up, it's like her body has shut down and what's happening is happening. And she may not even though her eyes are open, she's not conscious. So what you're describing, I think, is maybe what was happening in that moment. I only know about that through working with children and their traumas, etc.
Right.
Um, so it's a tough one because with domestic situations,
Hmm.
it doesn't tend to just explode one day and this is life.
Mm.
Um, and when we were having this discussion before starting this session,
Mm.
it would some of the questions I was putting were like why do victims stay and also why does it happen?
Hmm.
And the
Why the
reason it happened
perpetrators do it.
exactly. And I
Mm.
said it's a 3-word answer because they can. Literally, it's because they can.
Hmm.
If the first time it happened and that first time may be something, and I was going to say something as simple as, but it's not simple, but something like I don't know, a push in the forehead or um something that may not hurt but is
Right.
more on the disrespectful side.
Right.
How a person, and I say a person because men are also subjected to it as well, how a person responds in that instance then either enables or disables the act, so
Okay.
or any further action.
Mm.
So um example, a man is cussing and rare, and his hands are flying or whatever, and he's like, whatever, idiot, and pushes a girl in her forehead.
Mm.
Now,
Bad thing.
it is a mad thing, but what he could then turn around and say is, but I never hit you. I never did this. I never did that, like blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Or even before you even get to the push in the head, the fact that you're in somebody's personal space, uninvited, louding up yourself, like, where are you going?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's dependent on the reactions to the lesser of the aggressive actions, I
Or
would say.
the first inclination of somebody overstepping a boundary that you have.
That you should have. Not
Okay.
everybody has that
Okay.
boundary.
Fair.
So if they come from homes where, and we could speak about ACEs, which is in a nutshell, where a child grows up in an environment and then they mirror that environment through life. So mum was being beaten up by dad, dad was
Mm-hmm.
always drinking. Mum had me when she was a teenager, blah, blah, blah. So then the child understands and kind of picks up on those things and
Mm-hmm.
does the same actions because they're not supported or they don't understand that that's not okay.
So what did you call
Um,
that? Did you say ACEs?
ACEs, yeah, ACES is adverse childhood a experiences.
Okay.
There's a very good video online. Um, I'm pretty sure it'll be the first one that comes up if you type in childhood ACEs.
Okay.
Um, that being said, and I have experienced and seen in my working environment two children who come from, so my experience was two men that came from the same household.
Mm.
My work experience was two children that come from the same household, same environment, same mum and dad. One is completely opposed to dad or mum's behavior. The other one becomes exactly like them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is also the individual makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't stray too far from the point. So I will say that um, it's about the boundary. And maybe some, and I'm going to just say people because, like I said, it's male and female.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some people don't have enough self-worth or value to remove themselves from a situation when it is an action that could be, and I'm not going to say justified because there's no justification for putting your hands on somebody. Um, but the perpetrator tends to get away with the first instance by saying, but I didn't do this and but I didn't do that and justifying and, it won't happen again and blah, blah, blah. Maybe a bit of emotional, go on.
Yeah. So is that dependent on there being an experience in, I don't know, I'm gonna say use the word victim, but in this particular you've got perpetrator and victim. I'm just using those two terms. Yeah. Is the perpetrator getting away with that first incident dependent on the victim being able to call on something worse to justify that, okay, this thing that they've done isn't that bad? Or could it just be that the, like you were, sorry, as you're probably just about to say, that the perpetrator is just able to spin a story, excuse me, that makes that person feel like, okay, it isn't that bad? Or does it have to be something that they have seen or experienced beforehand for that manipulation? Because that's what I would see it as to work.
I'm
Does
not
that question make
saying that
sense?
it kind of makes me feel like if whether people who engage in that kind of behavior
Mm.
come from a background or a household that has displayed that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that is the case.
Okay.
I believe that there are opportunists who will maybe even seek out an individual who they see as somebody that they can control. And
Hmm.
I strongly believe that different people bring different things out of other people.
Okay.
You can have one person who will describe an individual completely different to the way another person would, just because of what that person brings out in them.
Mm.
If, for example, a man has never put his hand on a woman
Mm.
and he then meets somebody who I can't say evokes that feeling, but I believe there are characteristics. Like there's some women or some men that you just know, I'm not going to rap with this person. Like, and somebody who is that way inclined in the violent or domestic or being a perpetrator is not going to ramp with somebody like that. So there are
Like a
situations
bully.
where,
So like a bully, you mean?
yeah. So there are situations where a person who hasn't been brought up in that environment, it's not in their nature to do, may just flip one day and it's the first time they've ever done it. And it's like, what did I just do? Where did that even come from? It could be a multitude of reasons why that first time ever happened.
Right.
But the way the person or the victim responds in that moment, I believe, will then lead to that person either saying, I can never, ever, ever allow that to happen again, regardless of what I'm feeling. We're all
Interesting.
entitled to be angry, cheesed off, frustrated, fed up. We're entitled to our emotions. It's how we present those emotions that we need to be in control of. And so,
Whether it's a mistake or whether it's a habit or whether it's, is that what you're, so that's what this first instance is what you're saying can make this thing either like I said, either an actual mistake, because I'm assuming that's what people will say moving forward. It was just a mistake, it never meant to happen. I've never done this before.
I'll never do it again.
Yeah. Or it to be actually a habit that's now, I don't know, whatever it is, neural pathways created, whatever the hell it is. This is their response to these things. So yeah, so go on.
So in either instance, it will be the victim's response. Now, for the person who's never done it before, haven't come from that background, wasn't anything that they, if Mandem was having a conversation about it, or I don't even know if women have that kind of conversation, they'd be the one in the group to say, nah, man, that can't run. No, never. If they were to say, for example, let's just put worst case scenario. They've been, they found out, they might have even walked in on that act, for example. How they react in that instance, may drape up somebody or whatever. In that moment of madness, you could be drawn out character, and people could maybe even empathize and say, do you know what? I would have done the same thing. I'm not that kind of person, but I probably would have done that.
Crime of passion and all these kind of things that you hear about.
Right.
I hear what you're saying.
If, for example, they were to take that person back, it happens. They would be taking that person back, but that person would also be accepting the relationship based on the fact that they've had hands on.
Interesting.
Regardless of whether it was justified or not. So are you then paving the way for there to be hands on in situations of disrespect or what you deem to be acceptable situations?
Is that a question you're asking, or is that just a precursor to you? Is he just posing it out there to the thing?
Yeah.
It's something that I can think about and answer.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to jump in and be. I don't mean think about and I mean like literally answer now. That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna think about it now and
if
answer.
you've got a view on it, then
Yeah.
I'm down to hear it.
Okay.
But we can continue. In a situation where it's in that person's makeup, unfortunately, they've seen dad do it. Mum's been accepting of it. Mum's taken dad back. Blah blah blah. This, that, and the other.
Okay.
And going back to ACEs, that creates the adult that they then become, having a need for control. And if I can't control you with my words, I will control you physically. Those people have a makeup and a methodical way of doing things that mean that they know how to escalate gradually.
Okay.
They will start off with, and then we can talk about narcissism and all the rest of it, but it is a case of start off with, and it might not even be because, okay, you start off with an argument and the person's all up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you say, do you know what, this relationship isn't actually for me? Because I've never had somebody up in my face until this point in my life. I'm a grown person. I feel violated. And if that's how you feel you can talk to me, then we're not gonna work. Versus maybe the argument going a certain way, in some situations it ends up in a passionate situation, and the act happens and it's kind of like that's done and dusted, and
get me started.
What then happens next? This is fun and exciting. This is fun and exciting. If this is how she's going to react when I do it, or if this is how he's going to react when I do it, then where's the harm?
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be judgmental, but that's
I'm just talking about life right now. I'm trying to cover everything, okay? The flip side is, like I say, having that boundary. You're not gonna, I mean, even if it's not okay, it may not be okay to address in the moment. Someone's up in your face and blah blah blah, but you telling who you talking to and come out of my face and blah blah blah, just gonna
I hear that.
And a person can't argue with themselves. So in that situation, I just feel like let them say what they're saying and do what you're doing. While your hands aren't on me, I'll just let you run your mouth. Say what you got to say. Let it all out. When I'm away from the situation,
right.
And this is even not just in domestic situations, but any confrontational situation that's escalating. When I'm away from the situation and that person feels like they want to have a conversation with me, it will be at that point that I'm like, sorry, you crossed the line now. I'm out of harm's way. You're not in a position to raid up or say what you want to say or do what you want to do. Right. I am going to, that can't run. You're not somebody who I want in my life or someone who I'm going to be giving my energy to. The emotional blackmailer, which is somewhere in the middle, will be, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. I should have never done this, bawling, and oh, I'm going to do something to myself and I can't live with myself and blah, blah, blah. And so that's playing on the victim's emotional side, mental side. Are they going to be able to live with themselves if the perpetrator did do something? Is the perpetrator even actually going to do something? Or are they just...
you're never going to know either way.
There you go. And so it goes back to the question, why do people stay? And I think it has a lot to do with self-worth. Not necessarily just that, but there could be shame in that situation as well. Shame of the relationship. Shame of the relationship not working. Because, for example, if you and your man or you and your woman are seen as this solid, nice, strong couple, like people look to what they've got and blah, blah, blah. And no one knows what goes on behind closed doors, but that is what's happening behind closed doors. Are you in a frame of mind, or are you in a place to say, do you know what? These people need to know what is actually going on here. Or society right now is very much stuck on image and what looks good. Do you want the world to see that your relationship isn't actually what it is and that your ass is getting kicked either way? And I guess there could also be financial reasons why people stay, may have property together, may have invested in something together. You know, if you split up, who can afford to do what?
Children.
Children as well. There are several reasons why people stay, and I don't believe that people should be judged more than helped in situations where they do stay.
Mm-hmm. Is that across the board? Do you believe across the board that people?
When you say across the board, do you mean men and women or what?
No, I mean across the board as far as just for those examples you gave. So somebody that's going to stay because they are, I don't know, empathetic or sympathetic to them, the perpetrator, I don't know, manipulating them, if it is manipulation, and saying, okay, I can't live without you, and if you leave, I'm going to do whatever, jump off a bridge or whatever it is they're going to say. So that person, yeah, there's a level of understanding that person's going to have. Then you have the person that, okay, it's too difficult to financially split our assets, for example. So that is the reason why I'm just going to tough it out and whatever. Is that person going to have the same level of understanding? Or there's the person that looks at it and says, okay, if I leave this environment, my children are going to be in a bad financial situation, or they're going to have less contact or minimum contact with their other parent. So then that person, is that all of these across the board, and all the other ones that you said as well, do they all have the same level of understanding? Not saying that we're God and who are we to judge and all of these things, but we do. We can say all that and say we don't judge, but we do judge. And do they all have the same weight is what I'm asking. Like, is a person that is, because, for example, they're bringing it back to the Diddy and Cassie situation. As far as I'm aware, they don't have children together. So children thing isn't there. As far as I'm aware, financially, he's holding most of the weight as far as how much money he's got and how I right. Yeah. But from what I understand, there was a level of that was some of what I heard the other day is, like, I think she was 19 when they got together, and I think he was, whatever it was, 37 or whatever it was, some huge disparity in age and power.
The same with Jay-Z and Beyonce, and the same with R. Kelly and Aaliyah. They're all doing it, but sorry, go on.
I agree, 100%. And the power dynamic was crazy. As far as the Diddy and the Cassie situation, I think the difference I saw was that he's more on, like, the Weinstein vibe of, like, I can make you a star. Like, come, like, do whatever I say and you'll be the next this one, you'll be the next that one. And maybe that's the R. Kelly vibe as well. I don't really know his thing with Aaliyah it's a madness. But I think the nuance, let's say, in this scenario is that he being Diddy kind of said, I'm gonna make this star, and then kind of used that to create a relationship with this young girl, and then this young girl then became his plaything, offering her out to other men and him watching and all kind of debauchery and whatever like madness that was going on. So my point is, I agree with you first, sorry, just to say, like, all of these, not all of them, but there's a whole load of them that are doing it that are kind of, some people are saying they're hiding in the shadows, being Jay-Z, hiding in the shadows now. Because there was talk of him and Foxy Brown back in the day when she was 15, or all of these things that were whispers that are mentioned. what I'm really asking is, do all of those reasons that we both outlined there hold the same amount of understanding for you specifically? Like, do you think that person who, I don't know, is staying there just because they're holding the licks because this person offers them a certain type of lifestyle, for example? Because that's what some people are trying to say is why Cassie stayed, because he was affording her a decent a lifestyle. Does that person have the same level of understanding as the other person who is staying there because they believe it's the best thing for their children to have the 2.4, whatever? Whether they're right or wrong is neither here nor there. I'm just saying, for you, do you think those both of those victims are the same?
So you're asking whether, whatever the reason is, whether the reason holds the same weight
or impacts how much understanding you would have for the person, as in the victim, as in why they stay. Yeah, personally.
Personally, the reason to me isn't different.
Okay.
It's still self-worth, because nobody wants to be beaten up, regardless of what they're being offered. Nobody's taking that treatment and thinking, this is great. People who are paid millions of pounds to fight still don't think this is great. No one wants to walk away, bust up and bruise up and hurt up and all the rest of it.